I taught the Gita, by the way, Gita is pink, purple. Yeah. So anyway, I remember when I taught this class, the Emory class, I said one day, you know, just as colors and letters, just as numbers and letters have color. And they were like, they don't have color. And I'm like, you don't see them having color? And they're like, no. And then someone said, oh, you must have synesthesia. And after class, we did a test. She asked me for the colors. And a month later, she asked me if it was still the same colors. She went through them, like until A to Z, and then added the colors that appear in my mind. And then after a month, since they were still the same, so she determined basically synesthesia. So I guess, but I read a little bit about it, and it doesn't make any difference. I mean, people with autism oftentimes have it. I don't know whether I have autism. I don't care, whatever. But the point is, yeah, it's not in any way helpful or not. The only thing is good that remembering things, that really helps me. Yeah, remembering things. It's for that one. Yeah, it's helpful in that way.
Do you know the inventor Nikola Tesla?
Pardon?
Nikola Tesla, the famous inventor, he actually invented electricity, not Edison.
Ah.
He's like Austrian. He had a really severe form of synesthesia, and he could actually hallucinate entire labs, and that's how you would perfect his various designs, where Edison would build out labs with 20, 30 different people. And yeah, he had everything. So he would hear colors.
Oh.
He would see sounds.
Right.
And his whole life was kind of like what you would think of as like a psychedelic drug experience. With like
Wow, interesting.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Like often very high IQ and very good recall memory.
Well, unfortunately, my IQ is not there. So I've got a different version. I mean, of course, there are different versions of that. Sometimes they say artists have it and it's good for them, but I'm not an artist either. So I have no idea what it means in my case, but it helps me in the case of like remembering names. Numbers is even easier for me to remember. Yeah, whatever, I don't know.
You won't even need highlighter while studying.
Pardon?
You won't even need highlighter while studying.
I still do, unfortunately. But like the funny thing is, like when I think of a person, I think Gita, I think purple. Starting purple, finishing red. Because G is purple, kind of pinkish purple. Yeah. And V, E, it's kind of like that transparent part. That's why Ashwin is purple. That's how I spell him. I spell his name E-E. Probably wrong. Yeah, never mind. If it's an I, you turn white, by the way. Yeah, the eye's white. So if you spell it Ashwin, oh, right now, before my eyes, you've just turned white. The whole time you were transparent, but starting red and turning transparent. Now you're white, you're red, turning yellow, turning white.
Would the person change his color, or just when you're imagining their name?
Not the person, yeah, when I address them, when I think of them using the name. When I think of them, like if I think of Ashwin, if I think Shubham, it's brown turning red. But Shubham, no, not when I see you, not in that way. If I have a visual image of you, no. You see, it's like, depending on, do I think, because we do think in different ways. We sometimes think in words and sometimes in imagery. So if I think Shubham and the whole, if it's more of a complex idea, maybe Shubham explained me how to do this, that, and the other, and I try to remember what he said and what someone else said, then yeah, he appeared the way I just described. If, on the other hand, I tried to think, oh, I saw him today, then just this image appears and it's not associated with the color. Taylor, by the way, is green turning red, ending brown.
What about Tyler?
Oh, you're not Taylor? Oh, then it's green turning red and white. Yeah, I was just thinking, how is it in Tibetan? In Tibetan, it's a little different, but they also have colors. Here, the letters also have colors. The A, for me, the A is always red. So if there's an A in there, But it's a little bit more complicated because they don't have vowels the way we do. It depends on the symbolism, the certain symbols above or below letters that turn them into A, E, I, O, U.
So probably with the Wiley this was helpful, no?
Yeah, if I think along, but I don't use Wiley when I think of Tibetan. Okay. If I think in Wiley, then the colors are different. Okay. But I never think about it. It doesn't bother me, right? It's just there. Yeah. It's, I don't know, it's useless. But, you know, maybe not in some ways. I don't know. Okay, anyway, never mind. Okay, we have a little bit left on equalizing and exchanging self per others, and I want to do the meditation. And then we go more or back to emptiness. Okay, so one thing we haven't done yet, we did go through what is self-centeredness, what are the disadvantages, what are the advantages of cherishing others, and why self and others are equal, for the 5 reasons that I mentioned this morning. And we'll do them through in the meditation again, and thereby hopefully it's also easier later on for you to remember, just focusing on them in that meditative state. But then there's the last step that we haven't gone to yet. I should have mentioned it this morning and I forgot. Well, we went more into emptiness, so yeah, I never finished it. The last part is we're now realizing cherishing myself harms me, cherishing others benefits me, and anyway, there's no reason for me to cherish myself because there's no difference in terms of, so then I cherish others. I start to cherish others. I start to focus on their happiness as just as important as my own. And in terms of seeing all sentient beings versus myself, go even as far as thinking their happiness is more important because they outnumber me. But not just that, also as a way to bring some balance into my mental state, because so far I've only emphasized myself and my own happiness, and I'm so familiar, or I've habituated myself to that in such a profound way that when I'm not in control, when I don't watch out, it'll come back the whole time. So I now want to find a counterbalance or a counter force that balances it out, which would be all sentient beings are more important. But that is actually not literally true. All sentient beings are equally important. So others are not more important, I should say. It's not true that others are more important than I am, in the sense only if I think of them as the majority, but each and every individual is not more important than me. But I can still think that they are purposely, knowing that it's not in accordance with reality, but still knowing that it helps me. It helps me to get back into balance, into a balanced state. Does that make sense? Yes. So, in that meditation, we will do the meditation now. And I'll take you exactly through these different states, starting with self-centeredness. You have a chance to identify it, etc., all the way through. And then at the very end, hopefully, and if you know already that this is where I want to take you, where this meditation should take you, I should say, it's to get a sense others are just as important. So far, my happiness, my well-being, okay, but coming to the conclusion, so I can't change what's in the past, but from now on to redirect my focus. Yeah? And that should be really felt in an emotional, like, okay, I'm ready. So the emotional conclusion should be, I should do this. From now on, I focus on everyone's happiness. If I can, all sentient beings, but if that feels, all other sentient beings, but if that feels too overwhelmed, feels too strong in my mind, it's okay to also think myself included, everyone. So I will not sacrifice others' happiness for my own. Yeah? And that's just to focus, to have that emotional response. And once I'll tell you to do so, when I ask you to stop analyzing and focus on that emotional that kind of emotion, that kind of emotional response to the meditation, stop analyzing and just single-pointedly focus on it. Focus on it, and when you do, it's done for the purpose of sinking deeper into our, for lack of a better word, it's not literally deeper, like what am I talking about, deep within. This is just the Western way of thinking, that the emotions are more in this area and the rational is more up there. So I don't know if that's even true, but whichever way you try to think about it, but it should permeate our mind more. It should sink deeper into our mind so that it influences our thoughts later on. Does that make sense? Does it? No? It doesn't? Okay. Now, for instance, going back to the example of anger, right? With the anger, if someone, for instance, insults me, and I start thinking about how dare they do such and such, but I never have the time to get angry because someone, I don't know, disrupts me, for instance. So I never act out of anger. That emotional response didn't set in. Right? I just thought, oh, how dare they, and they did say this, and they said that, and that wasn't justified. But then I get disrupted, and I forget about that, and I never get angry. So I will never act towards that person in a different way. Does that make sense? Because that emotional response of anger didn't sink deep enough into my mind to influence my actions. So you see, so we can see there's a difference between having the emotional response of anger and not having it. Similar here now. We analyze, but instead of having anger, it's the response of, I'm ready to cherish others. I will cherish. Maybe even having that mind, I cherish all others. To really feel others' happiness is just as important. So that emotional response, you stay with it for some time, just as we stay with the anger for some time. That's also important to really affect us, because if it's just a split second, it won't affect our actions. But we boil within. Don't we say, like, I'm boiling inside? The anger kind of churns within us for some time. And the longer it churns, and the stronger that churning is, the more likely I'm going to act out of this anger. Here, similarly, but in a positive way, it churns that wish to benefit others, that wish for others to be happy, to cherish others, cherish their happiness. It churns within me. I stay with that for some time. And then without having to do much more, it'll probably pop up on its own every now and then, but we have to, of course, reinforce it at times. And it will also affect my actions. Does that make sense? So let's try that. Okay. Again, as always, we start with breathing, some breathing meditation. Just watch your breath. So then Let's pay attention to our own self-centered mind. To a mind that is attached to or clings to I and my happiness as more important than that of others. Try to identify that particular mind within yourself. Through memory. If it's not directly accessible, think of times when your own happiness seemed to be definitely more important than that of others. And it's that mind that is the entrance to all our problems. In many Buddhist texts, it says that this self-centered mind is responsible for all our problems. For every unpleasant experience we have can be traced back to that mind. Which therefore means if we didn't have the self-centered attitude, we wouldn't have any suffering, any problems, or any unpleasant experiences. Cherishing others, on the other hand, is the opposite. Buddhist texts tell us it's the entrance to happiness. Even our limited happiness, our limited samsaric happiness, is the result of cherishing others. Even in a limited way. So all that is good in our life, the fact that we're educated, well-fed, and have the freedom to attend a course such as this helps us to transform our mind. It's all the result of cherishing others. We often rationalize our innate tendency to cherish ourselves at the expense of others. By thinking, I'm most important for my own survival. And for my own personal spiritual progress. So I have to obsess over myself. Because no one else does. Let's think again. Aren't self and others equally important for our well-being, our worldly as well as spiritual well-being? Although, unless I ate the food and drank liquids water and so forth, I wouldn't survive. However, think how many people are involved in providing us with the food and the drink we enjoy every day. Directly as well as indirectly. People planting the food, harvesting it, the insects that provide the right kind of soil, through their excrements and they're providing oxygen to the ground. Pollinizing the different plants. And those who prepare the food for transport, those who transport it, who sell it, who prepare it. And everyone else who is responsible for those directly involved in providing us with food. And keeping them alive, keeping them well fed and healthy. And then there's everyone else who provides us with clothes, shelter, medicine, hygienic products so we keep clean. And of course, everyone involved in providing us with the knowledge necessary to stay healthy. And thus to have a long life. When we were born, we couldn't even speak. Didn't know how to eat or how to go to the toilet. through the kindness of others. We learn to walk, to communicate, to read and write. And learn everything needed to look after ourselves. So this is just from a worldly point of view, but what about practicing the Dharma? In other words, transforming our mind in order to find lasting satisfaction. Again, we need other sentient beings. It's through the kindness of even those obnoxious people, those who are difficult, giving us the precious opportunity to practice patience. To strengthen our love and compassion. Even at times when things are difficult. Other living beings give us the opportunity to practice generosity. An ethical discipline. They inspire us or show us our weaknesses. Therefore, they're just as important for our worldly well-being as they are for our spiritual well-being. Just as important as ourselves. similarly, they're equal to ourselves in that they're driven by the same wish to find satisfaction and to be free from unpleasant experiences. That's what we all have in common. While that which distinguishes us is superficial in comparison. And on an ultimate level, well, none of us has a concrete, independently or inherently existent self. And even if it may seem as if the I is the center of the universe, while my I is only I from the perspective of my own mind, but it's other from the perspective of everyone else. And your I is other from the perspective of everyone other than you. Plus, I can only exist if there are others. Our identity, who we are, and who we cherish so much, does only exist because of others. And therefore, it just doesn't make any sense to put our own self and our own happiness before that of others. Instead, it only makes sense to cherish all sentient beings. So now, in conclusion, try to elicit an emotional response to this analysis. And without analyzing, focus on that single-pointedly. Allowing for it to permeate your mind on a deeper level. Kept thinking, bummer, those dogs, the moment I want the emotion. One dog started. I could hear some in the village. All the other ones. I hope you were able to ignore them. Sorry, that was a bit of a long one. It was a little longer. Yeah, but never mind. Half an hour. But it is a particularly long one. Okay. All right, great. Now, let's go back to emptiness. What time is it? Yeah, still got 15 minutes and we'll have to take a break, right? Is that a good time? No, 3 I think is a good time. All right. Do you have any questions so far? Yes? It's not directly related to what we just did? Okay. Shall we first see whether there's... Definitely you get a chance to ask your question, but if there's anything, is there anything that relates directly to what we just did? Do you have any question? Oh, yes, please.
So I find myself in other meditation that I start thinking and then my mind just goes to other things.
Okay.
And then I miss like part of your sentences or something, so it's hard for me to like part of the things that you say because my mind is somewhere
Yes, yes.
And when I come back, so
Yeah.
I kind of miss part of it. So then I try to understand if it's still like beneficial a little bit when I hear only parts.
Sorry, there's a dog in the back. I have a hard time hearing. It's not you. It's just the dog seems to be equally loud.
Come to hear.
Okay, yes, thank you.
So I say
So
that
your mind goes off, and then I.
now when I do breathing meditation, so I just come back and
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
nothing to remember.
Yes.
And right now I feel like I see that sometimes I miss parts of what you say,
Ah.
what you sentences.
Yes, yes.
And then I wonder if it's still like beneficial, like to get an idea when I miss some of the parts, so then it's not,
Oh.
I was wondering.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, all right, so Ronnie's question is, yes, I get that. So it's hard to keep the mind, of course we're not used to keeping the mind on a particular thought for too long. And maybe my breaks were also too long. Did I feel like sometimes my breaks were too long? Yeah, well, it depends. Of course, our mind is distracted. It takes some time to get used to it. So, but it's natural that the mind wanders off. Is it still beneficial if it does wander off? And maybe even sometimes you miss out on what I say. Oh, I guess it does. I mean, maybe just thinking, wow, I need to focus more. I mean, that's already a benefit to find out how distracted we are and to continue doing it so that that distraction is lessened. So in the long term, that's definitely an important insight. But I guess whenever you paid some attention, I think there's some benefit. I mean, just doing it, yeah, I don't think it's a waste of time in that just the fact that we do sit down and analyze something, because the kind of attention right now we have when it comes to these more positive aspects, we don't have, but we have it when it comes to when we're enraged, for instance. So to learn to kind of redirect the mind, and I think just doing it is beneficial, and I'm pretty sure you didn't miss everything I said.
Yeah,
No, so then you go for whichever part you got. So don't worry about being distracted. That's natural. Is there anyone who wasn't distracted at all? There you go. Yeah, yeah. No, there's still some benefit, I'm pretty sure. And the thing is a little bit what is hard for you, because if you do the meditation totally on your own, right? You're in charge. You don't need to pay that much attention to what I'm saying and try to understand it. Actually, eventually, when you do this long, and you don't need guided meditation forever. It's one of those things you can pretty soon can do it yourself. You're already very good at it anyway, right? You can analyze, you can all do that. So it's actually a good thing that you take that as only some guideline. But take it from yourself, because you know much better what is effective to say to yourself. I mean, some of the things that I find effective wouldn't be effective in the same way. And I'm pretty sure if I were to say, create a meditation, in the same kind of meditation for yourself, you would come up with something that for you it's tailored onto your mind, much better than what I'm saying. So in the end, I'm just kind of pointing the direction where you could be going, but you would be much better doing it. So I would encourage you, if you want to do this, to maybe start off just writing it down. You could just start writing it down, a few kind of bullet points, if you like, and then you kind of check, you just look, meditate, yeah? And at some point you no longer need the notes, you can do it on your own, and then you have an emotional response that is much more beneficial because you know exactly where you need to go. So right now I'm doing what I find beneficial and what I hope is beneficial for you, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know whether I catch the right. So in the end, what I want you to do, if I say something and you think, oh no, that's not really helpful, by all means, forget what I said and apply your own reasoning. Yeah, if you find the food is not, or whatever, as just an example, or I use the obnoxious is that obnoxious person? Yeah, obnoxious person. I use that as an example for patience. But if patience is not really something you need to train in, it's something else, forget about patience, the way I put it, and use something else. Those are just kind of suggestions. Right? Okay, great. Yes, please. What's your name?
Nitsan.
Nitan. Mhm.
Nitsan.
Nitan. Nitsan.
Yeah.
Ah, Nitsan. Okay, Nitsan. Okay. Go ahead, Nitsan.
I just in the end of the meditation before the emotional response part.
Yeah.
I'm next to the mic.
Okay.
So I found I'm running quickly on all the bullet points again.
Ah, good.
But I thought maybe, and it helped me, but I thought maybe it's too much the monkey mind, like running, jumping quickly again on all the bullet points. If you should, if it's not, it helped me, but I don't know if
I
it's...
think it's a very good idea. Actually, I think it's good. Surely it's also the mind that is tempted to entertainment, so just before you have to focus single-pointedly, get a little entertainment, race through it. But that I don't see that's a problem, because actually every point does trigger a bit of an emotional response, possibly. And then to have the sum of these emotional possible responses come together in that concluding emotional response is very clever. So my thought would be, it's good to just quickly go over again in your mind, also as an exercise to remember, and then elicit that emotion. Very good. So you could try that. For some of you that may be easier or more beneficial, for others not. So we can also learn from each other. I think that's a really good idea. I never thought about doing that. So very good.
Yeah, one of the things I just want to say.
Oh, okay. So I think I can also repeat what you said. Oh, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
In response to what Ronnie is saying,
Yes.
I do sometimes notice when you say something, partly because it brings up a memory or an emotion, as you said. So my mind will take a while to stay there, and so you miss what she has said. So when I come back to it, but I later remember what was it that took my mind away. And sometimes it helps me just reflect on it because it's obviously a little bit of a trigger point. That's why my mind got distracted. And in a way, it's a positive thing because it helps me to clean out my laundry, actually.
Very good.
In that sense, yeah.
That's a good point she's making, that anything that happens is a good thing. Basically, anything can be taken as a new topic of meditation, right? I like that. So I think this aligns with what I said earlier, or no, I didn't say this. I never said it in this context. Every meditation is a good meditation. So anything that comes up can be utilized to further our understanding of ourselves and of what's going on. Very good. Yeah, that's very helpful. Great. To do exactly that. When you find you've been distracted by an emotion coming up, that gives you further food for another meditation. Right? Yeah, lovely. Yes, please.
For me, sometimes when I try to meditate,
Mm-hmm.
not just like today as well, but oftentimes I feel as though I get lost.
Mm-hmm.
It's not exactly that I'm sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
I am in some state which I can't recognize,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't even recall what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can hear something in the background, but my intellect is not
Yeah.
capturing it and understanding it.
All
I
right.
don't know how to get past that.
Yeah, that's called lethargy or dullness or something. It's like, why does that arise? Because usually when we sit still, do you keep your eyes open or closed? Closed. Ah, yeah, well, that's a problem. The problem is usually when we close our eyes to fall asleep. We're used to it. That's why it is recommended, if you have that experience, place maybe something that doesn't have like a wild pattern in front of you. Like, this will not excite me. So if I have that issue, I may place for instance, like something black in front of me, And then I keep my eyes open and I see without seeing. Does that make sense? So instead of, if there were lots of flowers and intricate and letters, even worse, I start reading them. So any kind of, what do you call that? Yeah. Any kind of stimuli or stimuli would mean my mind is distracted. So better to have a plain surface and then look. And you know, like sometimes when someone talks to you and they go like this, stare kind of like, so they're not seeing any, they're no longer seeing you and they're not seeing anything. We can actually do that. We can be so focused on something else that we stop seeing what's in front of us. That's what we're trying to do when we meditate. Keep our eyes open, because if we don't, automatically that dull, and in my case it's the same. I cannot keep my eyes closed. Only when what I say requires so much concentration that for a short moment I may close my eyes. But only because otherwise I get distracted. But then I open them again because I have exactly the same problem. I get drowsy. So there's something called lethargy. Like we have two extremes. When we meditate, there are two extreme states. One is a distracted state, sometimes described as excitement, but really it's just not being able to stay focused. And the other extreme, or the other obstacle, which is on the opposite side basically, or an opposite scale, is becoming drowsy, becoming tired. So then there's no longer a clarity. We need both the focus, which is moving away from the distracted mind, but clarity at the same time that allows us to, in this case, analyze with attentiveness. So when we're drowsy and when we feel kind of like we're dozing off, then that's gone. Both are needed, stability of mind and clarity. So my recommendation is to keep your eyes open and learn to look in front of you and stop seeing what's there. You stop seeing what's there. Sometimes it's a bit like you see it, you don't see it, you see it, you don't see it. You know, it switches back and forth. And trust me, I check the watch every now and then, you know. So I was seeing and then not seeing. So it's like a switching back and forth. That takes some time. But therefore, you never see. Look, even the Buddha's eyes are open. The Buddha is in a meditative posture. Usually in the images of Buddhas in particular, their eyes are oftentimes kind of like in the meditative so they're not like some wrathful ones, yes, they're basically staring at you, but the peaceful ones that usually manifest in the form of meditation, they have their eyes open and you're looking kind of past your nose in that direction, in the space in front of you. Keep your head down a little bit, but not too low, not too high. Too high leads to excitement. Too low is a bit like, you know, when you nod off, your head is quite low. So like this, that will help. Or try it out. Try it out, yeah. Yes?
I sometimes struggle because I have tears in my eyes.
Just a sec, you have tears,
Yeah, if I...
You have tears in your eyes. Oh, can you?
So then I close and open again.
Yeah. Yes, of course, you need to blink.
Yeah.
Yes, I blink as well. I cannot stare the whole time. Eventually, they start getting too dry or tears. Yeah. No, you need to find a way, of course, and this takes some time, what works best for you. There may also be times when the pattern in front of you or whatever is in front of you gets too much. Close your eyes for a few moments. But in my case, when that happens, I need to open them sooner or later. I start getting drowsy. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Tyler, not Taylor, Tyler. Yeah.
Yeah, oh wow.
Go ahead.
I realized that like the last,
Oh, no, stay. I think it's
the
okay.
last few months I've been meditating, I've been doing it eyes closed, and
Okay.
like her, I was getting kind of drowsy.
Yeah.
And then I tried opening them, and then the blinking would throw me off, and there was no way I could focus on the breath because I was seeing things.
Right.
So what's kind of worked well for me is in the beginning, close my eyes, really like some deep breaths, and then gently open like 1/3, and then everything's almost
Nice.
The first 10 minutes, I was eyes closed, and I was kind of doing this a few times.
Okay.
So that's at least working better for me. But yeah, just to
Nice, Tyler. So the way he just put it, let me repeat it, make sure I get it right. So you're saying you start off with closing your eyes because you've been fresh and awake, and so before meditating. So close your eyes until you find that calm place. And then when you open it, it's almost blurry anyway.
It is. I open up a little bit. It's like, so close my eyes for like little body scan.
Yes.
You know, the motivation.
Yeah.
A few deep breaths.
Yes.
Getting my, kind of focusing on my breath, and then it's a gentle opening.
Yes.
And then I don't have to blink as much, because the blinking was just like driving me nuts. Every time I would blink, I would lose the breath and go back. And then you're not blinking as much. And every once in a while, close it a little bit, open it back up. But at least, again, for me, that's working okay.
Great, great. You know, this is beautiful because we learn from each other in that way. No, this is great. You know, like some days ago, I took some medicine and I had an adverse reaction, and I could feel something was going on, and my blood pressure suddenly shot up. So the nuns have like a blood pressure kind of measuring device, and I borrowed that, and for a few days I measured it, and it went down to normal again. But I had also read it was helpful to do certain breathing, and I realized I can use that for my breathing meditation. It was really good. It's 4 seconds in, 2 seconds holding, 6 seconds out. Apparently that calms you. And it's true, I just sat there before taking my blood pressure. So if I'd just been running around, I knew that wasn't the blood pressure I was looking. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, breathing in, 4 seconds in, 2 seconds holding, 6 out. And as I did this, my mind became so calm that even my vision became blurry in the way such that I no longer saw anything. And I thought, whoa, this is good for settling my mind for breathing meditation. Now they do talk about this 9-round breathing meditation, but this one worked better for me. It really calmed my mind. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So counting was helpful, but it naturally, that rhythm, more shorter in, holding, longer out, that really calmed my mind. So that's just something else that I found worked for me. So I think it's beautiful, all of you bringing something in, and that could also be for the discussion group, that I would like you to do. That everyone, maybe if they have something to share, right? For something to share in terms of how they dealt with these two obstacles, overexcitement and dullness or lethargy, or whatever you want to call that. I think that's a good idea if you have something to share. If not, never mind. Yeah, but I think everyone's comment here has been so helpful. So therefore, yeah, we can continue that in the discussion, or you could continue that in the discussion group if you don't mind. And of course, that's just one aspect. Any more questions? Yes, please.
Like ever since I've been
The microphone?
I think I'm loud enough. So I've been just thinking that, like, talking about meditation, so I wasn't able to distinguish between meditation and active thinking. Like, wouldn't meditation just be thinking, just in a particular way?
That's a good question. All right. Meditation versus active thinking. All right. Because we associate meditation with not thinking, right? Yes. You're not completely wrong that meditation is associated with not thinking, but that is one type of meditation only. The meditation of not thinking is, for instance, breathing meditation, although you are thinking. Really, you are thinking. So it's not about actually stopping our thoughts. There are also meditations that require that, but that's not what we're doing. So here we're doing, for instance, breathing meditation. Is your thought active? Well, yes. Are you actually in the present moment? No. When you're breathing, and your meditating mind is not the sense consciousness, right? Your breathing, your meditating mind is the mental consciousness. And the breath that you are focusing on is no longer there. It happened a moment earlier. Does that make sense? So actually we're never in the present. It's impossible. We're never in the present. But we're as close to the present as possible, because for your body consciousness, it's your body consciousness that perceives the breathing. It's a sense consciousness. It's aware of the sensation, let's say, in your belly or at your nose. Those are the ones that are most, they're the strongest, so that we can notice. The most noticeable. So let's say it's your belly. I prefer the belly. You know why? I prefer the belly because it's so important to take deep breath. And oftentimes we don't take enough deep breath. So actually, from a medical point of view, it's very important to take deep breath in terms of oxygen going all through our body, and of course also to calm the mind, which is why I've chosen for my own meditation, when I do breathing meditation, not to focus on this part, but to focus on my breathing going deep enough into my belly, which just happens to be also good for me. And I have longer time to focus on, right? It's not happening too fast. But anyway, so focusing on my belly, therefore, it's the body consciousness that has the stimuli of what happens in my body. But then what's meditating is the mental consciousness. So first there's the breath, then there is the perception of that with my body consciousness, and only then is the mental consciousness that now focuses on the perception of breathing in and out. Okay? So that mind, that mental consciousness, it's a thinking mind. In, out, in, out. It's still thought, but it's not very exciting. I mean, there's not much going on, not much thought, basically. In, out, nothing more. So it's still active in that way. Although stabilizing at the same time as it doesn't go all over the place. So that's stabilizing meditation. I just wanted to point out that there's still some mental activity in the sense in, out at least. All right. So the object changes, in other words. But there's also analytical meditation. There's also analytical meditation, and that is a form of meditation, a very powerful form of meditation. It is active thinking, but controlled active thinking, and active thinking that is in accordance with reality. That is in accordance, so it's not like jumping back and forth with unrealistic thoughts, extreme thoughts. Sometimes they're realistic, sometimes they're not, because sometimes we are resentful, sometimes there's attachment. So like our trains of thought, it's like a super fast Japanese train, right? Going from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And parts of them are realistic, parts of them are not. That's an active thinking that is not helpful. Here, we're actually slowing down the thinking, because now you're actively doing so. You don't allow the mind to jump from here to there, ideally. But it's an active thinking that is more controlled, and that is in accordance with reality, and that has continuity, right? It's not jumping back and forth from one thought to the next, to the next, to the next. It has consistency, and it's guiding your mind towards a particular emotional response, which once that has been attained, you're focusing single-pointedly again. So it is active thinking, yes, but not ordinary active thinking. And it is meant to break through our usual thought patterns that are so out of control, and therefore so much, they're so, what's the word, affected by our afflictions. If you do this often enough, you can do this on a daily basis. You stop going all over the place. Your mind is in the Dharma, in every thought, every step you take. When you don't need to, like even when you drive a car. Do you drive a car? Yeah. So when you drive, You've been driving for a while probably now, so you don't need to think, okay, steering wheel, gear, gas, brake. No, it's like you're on autopilot. So most of what we do, we are on autopilot. You don't need to think first the right foot, then the left foot. No, we walk. Okay, and so we have enough time to now not daydream and go all over, control thinking. That's when the Dharma becomes your life. It's no longer a hobby. When you do some meditation and then gone, we're not. No, you have now, the Dharma has come into your life. But how can you train that if you're so used to just daydreaming? Well, in those meditations you do. It's a very powerful way to learn, first of all, to control your thoughts, to make them more consistent, more logical, and not allow your mind to control you. But it also, of course, undoes a lot of psychological patterns, like habits. We are controlled by our habits, and if they're negative, we're harming ourselves. We're doing it over again, we're reinforcing these habits, and in that way experience so many problems. We're trying to undo these habits, right? So one habit, of course, of daydreaming wildly, but also reacting with anger automatically in every situation, reacting with attachment, with envy, and so forth. So it's like reprogramming. Okay, let's use more modern language. Reprogramming our mind. So far, our mind has been like a wild computer that's affected by hundreds of viruses. It's doing its own thing. It's no longer working as a computer. It's no longer useful. You can't use it. Our mind is a bit like that. Our tendencies are like viruses. They make us go here and there and everywhere, and we're at breaking point at times, right? Computer gets too hot, the screen starts being affected, etc. So this is what we are now. We are like a computer with lots of viruses, with this incredible potential. So now we need to clean, we need to reprogram that computer so that it does exactly what our mind, what our wisdom wants it to do, without these viruses, doing crazy stuff. Okay, so let's use that language. Reprogram. So you need that active reprogramming, and that's analytical meditation. I don't know much about computer programming. I hope I said it in the right way. All right, okay. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's active thinking. Don't worry about active thinking. It's one type of meditation that is very powerful. But of course, there are other ones as well. Yeah, great. No more? Any? Yes, please? Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, your question still. Yeah, please, go ahead.
So sometimes you talk about the mind in the singular and sometimes in the plural. Could you say a bit more?
Sometimes I talk, good one. Sometimes I talk about the mind in the singular and sometimes in plural. You got me there. No, but I do it on purpose. Well, because first of all, in the English language, it's actually not correct to talk about consciousnesses and to talk about minds. But that's not why I'm doing that. Even in Tibetan, and Tibetan is a language where plural and singular are not used as much as you use it in English, for instance. I mean, you can talk about person in general. When you mean all people, in English you would say people, but in Tibetan you still use the singular. So you can use singular a lot more. I don't know whether that's the same in Hindi. Do you have the same as in English? Do you use that? Is that distinction the same in English, like in Hindi, when you use singular? Yeah. In Tibetan, the word is the same, but you add a syllable to it if, in a few cases, in rare cases, you want to make sure everyone knows you talk about the plural. So in one way, the Dharma, the way it's taught in English, also reflects that, possibly. But sometimes if I talk about the mind in general, it's fine to just say the mind, right? I don't think there's a problem, but we shouldn't forget that there's always at least 5 minds. No, that's not true. At least 6 minds, but no, that's not true. When we're awake, as humans, there's at least always 6 minds. Of course, when we're asleep, the sense consciousnesses, 5 sense consciousnesses are not active. But in an ordinary state, so the state, I mean, when we communicate, when I talk about the Dharma, I'm always talking to people who are awake, well, most of the time. Every now and then someone nodding off, possible. But I have a way to stare at people. I stare people down when they start falling asleep. Like suddenly, if I feel like I start looking at her, and at some point they kind of, so I stare them down to make sure they don't fall asleep. No, I'm kidding. Well, not exactly. I am doing that actually, but so far I haven't detected anyone nodding off. So, but the point is that usually people are awake, and actually, when I do talk to them about the Dharma, then people have all 6 consciousnesses. So actually all 6 are there. And it depends on the context. Am I talking about the mind, as in like the mental consciousness? Or am I talking about the sense consciousnesses? It's usually actually clear from the context, because I say control the mind. I'm not talking about controlling the sense consciousnesses. I mean, they just do their thing. You don't control them really. You control, and you don't need to. It's basically the mental consciousness. Now, if I talk about the mind in the sense of the mind going all over the place, the mind being distracted, the mind analyzing, the mind worrying, that's all mental. None of those characteristics are found, so it really means the mental consciousness. And maybe I should be more precise saying mental consciousness. I'm so used to saying mind, when actually I mean the mental consciousness. And there's usually one. There are cases, and we'll talk more about advanced cases of compassion, when you have more than one mind. When you have more, I'll repeat the question here, so when you have more than one mind. But usually there's only one mental consciousness that is changing moment by moment, taking on different objects, but in every moment, usually there's just a particular object. So even when you reflect on the Four Noble Truths, you take step by step, right? You go through the first truth, the second truth. So it's in each moment the mind is different, and it becomes a continuum reflecting on all these aspects. Even breathing meditation is a continuum, in, out, not being exactly the same from moment to moment. Yes, you had a further question?
Just an observation that
Yeah.
it was actually helpful to think of different minds. You said find the mind that is self-centered.
Yes.
And it's like a voice in my head. And there are different voices in my head.
Okay, that's interesting.
And it kind of, and then
I'll repeat that.
the compassionate mind feels like a different voice in my head, while the self-centered mind feels like I can identify the words. And I can identify,
Yep, I think I know what you mean. Let me repeat what you said and make sure I understand. Yeah. Okay. All right, now I'm going to say something that's, I think, really important. Let me give you an example. This is a weird example. It seems like I'm totally off subject now. But imagine I take a torch and I turn it so fast, that it seems there's actually a circle. Okay? Our mental consciousness is a bit like that. Sometimes it goes so quick from one to the next, it seems that we have all these thoughts at the same time, because oftentimes also the mind alternates back and forth. So let's say what you just described. What you just said was, when I ask you to find the self-centered mind, what was I saying? Think back at times when it was active, which implies it's not always active. Which implies, and that is true, that's what I meant to imply, that at times there's the self-centered mind. Then there is the mind that is compassionate. Now you said there's a voice. This is very interesting because our mental consciousness, which is conceptual, is like a narrator. It's like someone basically interpreting everything we see. That's how it feels. Interestingly, if we know a language, if we learn to speak and we are proficient enough, we think in a particular language. Not always, but usually we are. Therefore, it seems like there's constantly someone telling a story. That's the thinking mind. That's the conceptual mind, because it uses language. And oftentimes it's uncontrolled. It's just doing its thing. It's almost like there is like there's a self in the back and going, what's going on? But of course there's no separate, but never mind. That's how it feels. I know exactly what you mean. That's how it feels. And what happens is it switches back and forth. So not back and forth. There's self-centeredness, and then there's compassion, and then there's attachment, and then there's resentment, and there's self-centeredness. So it switches back and forth. Even in our relationship with the person, we're attached to someone. So then the person tells us they have a problem. We have compassion for them. Oh, may you be free from that suffering. And then they say, well, I'm leaving this place. And we go, oh, don't leave, attachment, right? A moment earlier, we wanted them to be happy. And then they tell us they would be really happy if they moved to Bombay, but we don't want to move to Bombay. And we're like, oh, no, don't do that. Yeah? So you see, the mind switches very quickly back and forth. And sometimes the speed prevents us from knowing this is not happening simultaneous. It's a bit like if you're not used to seeing something that moves a lot. We don't have enough introspection initially, in particular, to notice how quickly it jumps from one thing to the next. But fortunately, through some practice, mindfulness, with, as I mentioned before, attentiveness, introspection, and recollection, you start to notice how the mind, the mental consciousness, is really quickly switching back and forth. And every mind has a different voice. In other words, it has different thoughts associated with it. For instance, attachment is saying, make me happy. Love is saying, may you be happy. And focusing on the same person, within 1 minute, we can have those two switching back and forth. Like I said, again, you have a partner, you have someone you love dearly, but you also are very attached to. You love and you're attached to. So they tell you, I'm not happy at my job. I'm so miserable. What can I do? And sincerely, you wish for them to find happiness. Sincerely, you wish them to be free from that suffering of not having the right job. And that motivates you to listen closer, and you ask them, tell me more. And then they say, yes, and I think it's best if I move to Mumbai. And you go, oh no, don't you move. Don't leave me. Don't go to Mumbai. The different voice is not now saying, I wish you're happy and find the job, because now the I is involved, and that means leaving the I. And so it switches, and then now it's saying, no, don't go to Mumbai. Find a job in Dharamshala, right? So now you're motivated. So see, this is how it's switching back and forth, depending on how the I feels threatened. So the self-centered mind is the one that thinks, okay, Mumbai, I'm here, you're there. Self is alone. Self-centered mind gives rise to attachment. Attachment gives rise to advising this person to find a job in Dharamshala. Versus the first moment when you just advise them to find a new job anyway, without even thinking of where. See how the voices are different? Yeah. And this we need to identify in ourselves. Look at your own. What is happening? Which thought was pure? Which one wasn't? And we can go so quickly. The self-centered mind is ready to jump in. Yes?
Is it one of the meditation techniques of just like when you catch yourself thinking, no judgment, right? Label it thinking, go back. I think one of the things I'm trying to do in everyday life, it's like, oh wow, I'm being compassionate, you're having a great day. And the example you just gave of, oh, don't move to Mumbai. And then in the back of your head, the observer, which is an illusion, right, is attachment. And then you're able to come back to compassion or just be aware. And what I'm trying to do is just trigger that observer to label attachment affliction more often, so then you can come back.
What you said is incredible, but I disagree on one point. You say the observer is an illusion. No, it's just that same mental consciousness.
So you're not an illusion, but I guess the emptiness thing, there's no,
I know, I think what you think. It's not a separate I or a separate observer. That I agree with, yes.
Illusion was the wrong word, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so what you just said was this. So ordinarily, with like a little bit of introspection coming into your life, so what happens is you actually become aware of this train of thoughts. Now you become aware of exactly attachment one moment, compassion the next moment, and that observer that is now, first initially you try not to judge, you just try to notice. That's the first step, because the judgment can take you off in a different direction, right? Therefore, so what you want to do now, what is actually happening when there's mindfulness? You're not multitasking. You're quickly changing back and forth. You train your mind for that spy to jump in every few moments. It's not like, unless you're so well trained that you actually have a second mental consciousness. You know, like think of your mind like a stream, and that stream can split into two and come together again. The mental consciousness can do that. The sense consciousnesses can't. They don't do that. But the mental consciousness, it can actually split into two. And so you can have two mental consciousnesses at the same time, if your attention is strong enough. If your attention is strong enough, then you can have two mental consciousnesses at the same time. So you don't need to switch. And I think through habituation, if your focus becomes stronger, you could actually always have that introspection run parallel and know what every mind is doing and be more attentive. I think that takes some practice. I'm not sure. This is my own personal view. I've never come across an explanation on that. Usually it seems that our mind switches back and forth. But we do know that there are advanced practitioners who can have compassion for all sentient beings, and Venerable Benjunla mentioned this before. There's compassion that runs parallel, that is at the same time as you have compassion that focuses on all sentient beings, also knows the emptiness or the impermanence of all sentient beings. Those two are two mental consciousnesses running parallel with the same strength. So it shows it's possible, but there's not much more explanation of how and when exactly, when that happens, what you need to do. And I suppose it's individually different. So it's possible through training that you have that spy run parallel all the time. And that's when you really, right? But even before they run parallel, I guess if the switch is quick enough without stressing you out, you could still learn to control yourself better. But whatever it is, it doesn't matter to us in the end. The point is that we can train ourselves so that sooner or later, like we put our mind on a leash, right? Right now, our mind is like, you know, when you have a dog, that if it's on a really long leash, then sometimes it goes in the direction you want, but sometimes it goes off into the fields and it kind of pulls you. Yeah, so this is how our mindfulness feels that right now, right? I mean, my sister has a dog that's a little unruly, and now it's pretty ruly. But I used to go jogging with that dog, and it would drive me crazy. It would always take me off the this way and that way, and I couldn't discipline it. And slowly it became more disciplined, and so then I could actually hold it on a long leash, and I could actually find that rhythm in running. So that reminded me a little bit of my own mind. Like my own mind is like that dog. And my mindfulness is just kind of trying to catch up and losing the plot. So it felt a little bit like that. My mind, taking my own mind onto that leash. And that's when change becomes easier. That's when everything becomes easier. But it takes time to get there. And it can be trained. And can be trained. And I don't believe you have to meditate every day to accomplish that. You have to be disciplined in every moment. So sometimes it helps to meditate every day to find that discipline, but even if you don't, to just again and again remind yourself, having that recollection, mindfulness in the literal sense of the word, like tempa, which means to remember, find that spot again and again and again. Yeah. And I think advanced practitioners, they're not carried away by their emotions ever, because they hold it on that leash. They have their mind on that leash. So even their afflictions are still there. It's very difficult for them to pop up. And even if they pop up, they can catch them right away. So they do pop up, but you can make sure they don't go out of, and no one of us will notice. We don't know. But when they start getting really powerful, you can tell even from the face and so forth. Right? Yes. Oh, please. Mm-hmm. Tea break. Oh, tea break. Oh, sorry. Of course. Ronnie, can we? Yeah. Okay. Great. So let's take a tea break because the tea's getting cold. I forgot. Yeah. So we take.